how this is going to work. We're about to have the time of our lives over the next few days. And if you let it, the next few days could literally change your life. It's crazy, but I was right here where you are 10 years ago, you guys. 2015, November of 2015 is when I sent my very first email announcing the start of my business 10 years ago this month. And so you're not too late and you're in just the right place. And over the next few days, I'm going to break down for you. I'm going to give you as much information as I possibly can on the possibilities of starting your own garden coaching business. So we're going to have a great time. All you got to do is show up live every day. We're going to be live today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we'll take a little break. We call that our implementation day. That's when you can catch up, watch the recordings again. And then on Friday, we have our best class, which is how to make your first $3,000 as a garden consultant. So you want to make sure you don't miss that day. That I call it my playbook day. That's where I'm going to get into all the details of what it takes to grow this business financially. So every single day, we're going to have a giveaway where we give you a free gift. And today's is a bonus cheat sheet on my favorite things to sell as a garden coach. Now, you only get these when you come live. And let me tell you, these are some really good downloads. All right. This is like my best information. We'll give this to you at the end of class. And at the end of every day, I tell you a personal story from building my own business. I'm telling you kind of a behind the scenes, like I don't really share this in public kind of story. And this again is only for people who are here live. So all you guys, thank you for being here live. It means the most to us. We have the most fun in person. So that's going to happen every single day. Each of these classes is going to be right at an hour. So I'm timing myself. I'm making sure that I'm staying on the clock here. So I'm not going to keep you longer than an hour. And then you can go off, do your thing, start building your business as soon as we're done. So I want to give you a huge welcome. My name is Nicole Burke. And like I said, 10 years ago this month, I sent out my first email to introduce my business. Today, I get to meet with thousands of people and teach them my garden method. I've gotten to write 3 books all about gardening. But my favorite part is not just creating gardens like this and inspiring other people to garden, not just writing books about the garden, but also helping people like you start a garden business. Because if you're anything like me, if you're anything the way I was 10 years ago, you're in a place where you know things have to change. So, you know, you've got to make more money. Anybody thinking that these days? I'm like, I just had some eggs for breakfast. And I mean, you don't have to go further than the refrigerator to know you need to make some more money, right? We also want to have more time. I just turned 40. Well, I'm about to turn 47. I had turned 36 right before I started my business the first time. And at the time, I had a 3-year old, a 4-year old, a 7-year old, and an 8-year old. And I didn't want to miss those years with them, right? I knew I needed more money, but I also knew that those years when they were young and with me at home were going to fly by. And you also, if you're like me, you want your work to have meaning. I knew I could go just find some job anywhere, but I really wanted to wake up in the morning and feel like what I was doing mattered in the world and was actually making a difference for the good. You guys feeling that way? All right, tell me in the chat which one seems the most important to you right now: time, money, or meaning? Which one resonates with you the most? Well, I've got some good news, depending on which one you're interested in. There is a chance, sir. There is a business that you could own that makes money, can be done on your own time, and gives you a reason to wake up every morning. And this is what I call the perfect meeting of the minds here, where there is a business, there is a line of work that we could all be a part of that makes good money, that can be done on your own time, and that has a purpose. This is where I was 10 years ago. This is my 4 kids. I now have a freshman in college. That little girl in the green is in college. And then that girl in the blue, she's about to turn 14 years old. So at that time, when my kids were that age, I knew I needed to start earning some more money. I applied to work in development, and that was going to make good money and have purpose, but they wanted me to work weekends and nights. Then I applied to work for a nonprofit. that wasn't going to make much money, but it was going to have a lot of purpose and I could do it on my own time. And then finally, I applied to work in sales, and this was going to make good money and I could do it on my own time, but it really didn't have a meaning to me. It wasn't going to help me wake up in the morning. So, this is when I decided to just build a business from my garden. I asked Jason, my husband, I was talking to him and I said, I love the garden so much. I wonder if there's a way I could turn it into a way to make money. So my first plan was to sell goods from my garden. And this is literally, y'all, this is a product photo I took from my garden. Actually, my cousin took it for me. I was going to sell seeds from my garden. I was going to sell starts from my garden. I even thought maybe I'll make stuff with the harvest. Anybody had those kind of ideas because the garden's so prolific? My second plan was to sell services in the garden that I could go, weed or mow or I don't know, like I even had this idea of like organic lawn care where I could use one of those push mowers that doesn't have any electricity associated with it. And I would sell that service. But this is when I talked to my friend Teresa. So I called my friend up, Teresa. She homeschooled with me, and I was like, "What do you think about this business idea?" And she was like, Nicole, I don't really want to buy stuff from your garden, and I don't. I have plenty of people who can do that service for me. I don't really. That would be embarrassing to me for you to do that in my yard." She was like, "But what I would love for you to do is to teach me how you do what you do. I would love for you to teach me how to garden." And y'all, that was an incredible light bulb moment for me when she said, "I don't want you to sell me things from the garden. I want you to teach me how to garden the way you do." That was my light bulb moment. That was the moment that everything changed for me. Because I don't know about you, but it excites me to think about showing people the way, teaching people how. Doing a lot of work, a lot of physical work. I mean, I like working in my own garden, but not necessarily other people's, right? And then selling a bunch of products that everybody else is selling too also doesn't excite me that much. But helping people, teaching people how to, that got me excited. That was when I was like, aha, garden consulting, this is the thing. And I started to realize as I started to offer this as a product that garden consulting literally checks all the boxes. Number one, when it comes to money, garden consulting has almost 100% profit margin. So if you think about it, let's take Cindy, okay? So Cindy, let's say I go to Cindy's house and I do a consult with Cindy, right? Now I got to pay for the gas to get to Cindy's house. But while I'm at Cindy's house, I'm just talking. I'm just answering her questions. I'm letting her lead and I'm giving her advice. And as I do this, I'm getting paid. She's paying me $50 for the consult, $100 for the consult, and then I drive home. I get to keep whatever she pays me. That goes right to me. I get to keep almost all the money. All I have to pay for is the gas, right? In my car. And besides that, I get to keep the margin. So, garden consulting has great margin. It can also be done on my own schedule. So, my kids at the time, I had a preschooler who went to preschool every day from 8 to 12. So, I would drop off my kids, walk them through the halls, say goodbye, run out, do consultations, and then come back, pick up Elaine at noon, take her with me to run errands, and then pick up the rest of my kids at 3. That was it. I just worked between the hours of 8 and 12 doing my consultations, and it can work within your time too. And then finally, purpose. I finally felt like the work I was doing was making a difference. When I saw people like Lori, this is one of my first clients, she had always wanted to garden, never had tried it before. And then after I got to help her set up her garden, her life changed. She literally ate from the garden almost every day. And I could see these kinds of changes, this kind of joy in my clients' eyes every time I went to work. It was the best thing. So, money, time, and purpose. If you feel like this is what needs to change in your life for 2026 and you're a gardener, then I have to tell you, garden consulting can work for you. So now I get to share this message with people all over the world. And I'm so thankful you guys found us for this moment this week. We're right on the brink of a new year, and this is a super exciting time for all of us to be thinking about what we can do in the new year and how we can build a business. Now, every day I want to give you not just a business lesson, but I also want to give you a mindset session. Mindset, believe it or not, is about 90% of the work as an entrepreneur. If I had to pick my worst enemy and my best friend when it comes to building my business over the last 10 years, it would be this lady right here. It's my brain. My brain, my best friend or my worst enemy. And so I've learned a couple of mindset hacks. I actually got certified as a life coach to help myself grow myself as a business owner. So I want to share with you each and every day. I'll have one of these for you each day. My own mindset hacks that I use to help myself through tough times. And I know these are going to be powerful for you guys. So the first one is what I call TVF. TVF. So anybody want to guess what TVF stands for? TVF. Heidi says, "Amen, sister." She knows the brain. It's powerful. All right, don't worry. We're going to finish up in just an hour. So we'll be done at 1 p.m. All right. TVF stands for thoughts versus facts. All right. I love your guesses. You're doing good. So, a thought is an idea or an opinion that is produced by thinking or something occurring suddenly in the mind. Anybody had a thought yet today? Of course you've had. You probably already had a thought today that was like, "What are you doing? Why are you going to some garden coach business builder? You're crazy." That's a crazy idea that you would start a business out of your garden, right? Anybody had a thought like that yet? So, thoughts are just things that just pop up in our mind and appear to be 100% true. A fact is a thing that is known or proven to be true. I like to really identify a fact as something that could be proven in a court of law, right? That you could put evidence in front of a jury and they would say, "Yep, that is factual. There are no doubts around that. That is really a fact." So, the crazy thing in our brains that it does is it takes all of our thoughts and it makes them appear as facts. So, I want to give you two examples. One is I can run a marathon, and another is I can't run a marathon. These are both thoughts. Now, some of you may be thinking, these are facts, Nicole. When I read I can't run a marathon, that's a fact. Okay. So if you read one of these and you see it as a fact, I want to show you how to kind of pull this apart. All right. So if I thought I want to run a marathon, yesterday was the New York City Marathon, right? So if I thought I want to run in the New York City Marathon, I could have a ton of thoughts about this, right? But here are some thoughts. People run marathons. 46-year-olds run marathons. People run short distances and add mileage. 500,000 people train to run marathons every year. It's 26.2 miles to run a marathon, and it takes most people over 4 hours to run a marathon. These are actual facts, right? These are things that could be proven. Someone said they're a lawyer and facts don't work anymore, right? But these could be proven to be true. By nature, they are facts. But these are thoughts about a marathon. I can run a marathon. I can't run a marathon. These are facts. So, what happens in business, in life, in everything, we have thoughts that present themselves as facts. And the mindset hack that I have learned that has unlocked so many new levels for me in business is not interpreting every single thought as a fact and testing it out instead. So, I want to test you guys. I'm going to say some things about building a garden business, and I want you to put T or F in the comments to tell me if it's a thought or a fact. All right. So the first, I don't know enough about gardening to become a garden coach yet. Is that a thought or a fact? You guys are good. People without a horticulture degree own landscape businesses in my town. Now, this may not be a fact, but it's something that you could prove, right? You could prove it. You could go find people who own landscape businesses and see if they have a horticulture degree or not. I've been gardening for 3 seasons. Fact or thought? That's a fact, right? That's just a number. It can be proven. Winter is too long for this to work in my town. Thought or fact? Some of you are like, fact. I know for sure it is too long. That's also a thought. There are 4 months below 30 degrees in my town. This could be a fact, right? This could be proven. Do you see the difference? One person, let's say two gardeners live in the same town. One gardener says, there's 4 months below 30 degrees in my town. Maybe I'll run a business during that time. Maybe I won't. This person says, winter is too long for this to work in my town. They're never going to run that business, right? They're not going to keep their business going in the winter. I could never be good at marketing and sales. Thoughts or facts? Definitely a thought. There's a plant that costs $250 at my local nursery. Thought or fact? That would be a fact. I would need to be rich to start this business. Thought or fact? Okay, you guys are good. It takes $45 to register a DBA. A DBA is doing business as. That would be a fact. I don't have enough time for this to work for me. That's a thought. I have 3 hours with nothing scheduled every weekday and 5 hours on Saturdays that are free. That's a fact. All right, you guys catching on? You feeling the vibe here? Here's just a few more. My town isn't big enough to support my business. Thought. Let's see. There are gardeners who get paid to help other gardeners in every state in the United States. No one would pay me for this. A thought. Garden coaches have quit their full-time jobs and get paid to do this for a living in the US, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. All right, I think you're getting it, right? So here's the cool thing. If you think a thought long enough, it can become a fact. Now, there's some exceptions to this rule, right? Like if I think I can fly, if I think I can fly long enough, I'm not necessarily going to grow wings, but a lot of things, if you think it enough, you make it true, right? So let's take our example about the marathon. I wake up tomorrow morning and I think I can run a marathon. I can run a marathon. I'm 46. I've never run a marathon, but I can. What am I going to do that day? Can you guys tell me? When I wake up tomorrow morning and I say I can run a marathon, what am I going to be doing? I'm going to train. I'm going to put on my tennis shoes. I'm going to get a plan. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get information. I'm going to begin training. I'm going to run. Exactly. I'm going to get some tennis shoes. I am going to get a little app to track my thing. I might buy a book on running a marathon, right? I'm going to go meet some people who know how to run marathons. I'm going to find the person who won the marathon who does training sessions. I'm going to hire them to help me run a marathon, right? Now, same, Gina says, eat a good breakfast. I love the way you're thinking, Gina. And then what if I wake up tomorrow morning and I say, I cannot run a marathon? What will I do on that day? Same person, same day, I cannot run a marathon. Nothing. Pulls cover overhead. Exactly. Go back to bed. So, do you see this person who thinks I can run a marathon? They may not run a marathon this year. They may not even run a marathon next year. But in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they are going to look like a marathoner and they will be very close to having completed a marathon, even if they haven't totally done it yet. Because over these years, they have thought the thought so much, I can run a marathon, that they have taken on this identity and done the things that it takes to run a marathon. And the person who has the opposite thought will have the opposite experience, right? The person who thinks I cannot run a marathon will look less and less and less like a marathon runner over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You don't know the power that you hold here. I don't even know it. None of us comprehend the power that a thought that is thought over and over and over again has in our life. But I will tell you, I sit here now with the books and the success and the gardens behind me because I was crazy enough to believe I could do it. I was crazy enough to wake up. I was delusional. That's what they call it now, right? Delulu. I was delusional enough to wake up every day and say, I can grow my own business. I can grow my own business. And you can do the exact same thing. So we have had more than 1,800 students come through our garden consulting program since 2020. And the ones that I have seen be the most successful are the ones who have this thought, I can do it. So today I want to teach you first what you can sell and how much you can charge for garden consulting products. All right. So I want you to start writing down this sentence. I can build a garden consulting business in the next 12 months. I can build a profitable garden consulting business in the next 12 months. So this is your workbook that we have for you guys. If you don't have it yet, I'm going to have my team put it in the chat. And you guys, we have a hub. The hub is the place to hang out over the next week. All right. The hub is going to have replays for you. It's going to have your workbooks. It's going to have any links that you need to each day's class. So my team's going to put the link for that here, but also I wanted to put the workbook here in case you want to use it. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. So make sure you take notes. On Friday, we have a massive giveaway. This is a perfect tool set for you guys to have as you take care of your first clients. You're going to get our Gardenary tools, my 3 books, all 4 of our seasonal planners, and our ultimate seed set. So you get all this as a giveaway that we'll be giving on Friday. So make sure you come live then. So this is what my business growth looked like from 2015 to 2021. And I want to show you that I built my business slowly. I had a great first year, and then I built on that year after year. I didn't have a quick win. I didn't immediately go viral. I wasn't immediately making $1 million in my business. It took me 6 years to get to $1 million in revenue. So I'm speaking to you from this perspective of the slow build over 5 years. I want to make it clear this isn't get rich quick. This isn't some real like sleazy, easy way to make a bunch of money. This is a lifestyle business. This is something you can do on your own time to make really great money and support your family. And I did it slowly over 5 years, and you can do it too. So a lot of people don't realize how much money is spent in gardening in the United States. And any business you go into, before you go into it, you need to understand this concept, which is called the TAM. TAM. You can write this down. TAM. It's in any business course you take. TAM stands for total addressable market. Okay? Total addressable market. What that means is how many people are buying this thing in general. What is the total market for this? So if you think about something like an iPhone, right? What is the total addressable market for an iPhone? 7 billion people, right? Every person on the planet essentially wants a phone now. Everybody wants their own personal device. But if you think about something very, very niche, right? Like something for, I don't know, I'm kind of getting myself into trouble here, but like someone who weaves baskets, I don't know, but think of some very niche hobby, okay? Think of some very niche hobby that like only a few people in the United States do. And that would not be a good business to go into, okay? Because very niche, very like small markets are hard sometimes to find customers for. What I want to show you is that the garden industry is huge. It's bigger than you could imagine. So it's $150 billion are spent every year in the United States on landscaping and garden products. $150 billion. This rivals some of the biggest industries like health and wellness. All right. A huge industry for us to come into. And the cool thing is that most of you don't know, I didn't know when I came into this, none of these people are giving advice. Okay. So of this 150 billion, no one's giving advice. They're selling products and they're selling services. And does anyone here think that gardening is using? Anybody here agree with me that gardening has one of the biggest gaps in terms of information when you start doing this hobby? Anybody? Yes. This is one of the most difficult hobbies to master. Why? Because we're dealing with nature here. So we have this huge market, $150 billion spent every year in the US, and hardly anyone is giving advice. Everyone is selling products and services. And this is what opens a gap for us to fill in. So the first thing, the easiest thing to sell is a coaching session. A coaching session is where you're just going to sit down with a client and you're just going to assess their current garden. This is where I want all of us to start for our products, is with coaching sessions. You're going to go to people who already have gardens and you're going to help them make their gardens better. Guess who knows best how hard it is to garden? Is it the people who haven't gardened yet or the people who've already started gardening? It's the people who've already started to garden, right? The people who've started a garden are your best clients to start with because they've already been confused, overwhelmed, frustrated. Again and again in my classes, I poll everyone and I ask them, have you gardened before? Have you gardened for a year? Have you gardened for 2 years? You want to know the majority of students that come to my classes, if they've gardened never or 1 year or more than 2 seasons? The majority have gardened one or more seasons already in their garden and they're coming to my classes. Those are the majority of people showing up. Why? Because they know it's tough. These are the people that are going to hire you to help them in their gardens because they know it's too hard. They need your expertise. Y'all, coaching sessions are not that hard. And I'm going to show you on Friday how to charge for these, okay? But here's the deal. You come in and you assess their garden. You check it out. Where's the sun? How much space is here? What's the soil like? Then you teach some of your principles. We show you how to do this inside of Gardenary, but you could teach your own if you want. So you teach your principles. These are the 3 steps to success in the garden. These are the 3 keys for great setup in your garden. You teach that, and then you compare what you have, your methods, to what they have. Well, according to me, this is how much sun we need, and this is how much sun you have. According to my method, this is the kind of soil you want. This is the kind of soil you have. So you compare and contrast, right? You assess what they have, you present what you know, and then you compare them. And from there, you give them an action plan. You need to change your soil, you need to move your bed, and you need to get your plants more in line with the seasons, right? Just 3 steps, boom, you're done. That's a coaching session. This is Erin. She is one of our garden coaches that went through our certification program, and she has grown her whole business simply through coaching. She only offers garden coaching sessions to existing garden clients. They've already got a garden. She doesn't have to set it up. She just helps them tweak it, and then she makes a plan for them every season. And she has students going through her coaching sessions in the same way that they would go through school, where they do a round of things in the first year, a round of things in the second year, and they get better and better at gardening. So that's the first thing you want to offer. Next is the personal garden consult. All right. So this is going to be the next level. I highly recommend you only start with the garden coaching sessions. Those are for people who already have a garden. All right. The personal garden consult is going to be for clients who don't yet have a garden. They're at that level 0. In some ways, these are really, to me, the most fun because you get to start from scratch. But there is second tier in terms of your ability. I would suggest start with the coaching session because you don't have to, you just get to tell them what's wrong. Don't y'all love it when you just get to, you didn't have to do any of the work. You just tell people how to fix it. That's how garden coaching sessions are. Consults are different. You're starting from scratch. So again, you are going to have these 3 parts to the consult. 1, you assess it. Assess their space, assess the sun, assess what they want to grow. And then you're going to apply your system. You're going to teach your system. So for us at Gardenary, the system we teach is raised beds, a certain kind of soil mix, growing vertically, and then growing with the seasons. So you make those recommendations, you explain it, and then you just tell them the plan. This is what I recommend for you. Now, I'm going to show you in a second how you can take this further, but you could stop here. You could stop here. I got advice. I'll tell you about this on Friday, but I paid about $3,000 to fly to California and get advice about my business when I first got started. And one of the business owners that I met with, she said this is all she does. She said she walks into the consult and she even tells them, you need to get a piece of paper and a pencil because I'm only going to say this once. And she just tells them everything they need to do, but it's their responsibility to write it down, to take notes, and to take action. Her job is just to give the advice. I thought that was pretty boss of her. I was like, wow, okay. So this is a way you can do this so simply as you just go, you talk, you give advice. They take notes, you make your recommendations, and you're done. You could literally end it right there and be done with that client and then move on to the next one. This is Pranithia. She lives in Louisiana, and she's been a garden coach for years through our Gardenary program. She does workshops and consults for her paying customers. All right, the next thing that you could sell is a package. And this is where you take your consultation and you package it with coaching. So you pull them together. And this is where I think the magic really starts to happen. This happened for me, honestly, by accident, because I would do the consult and I was thinking about that, the lady who had taught me, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to give them the consultation and walk away. And they were like, well, when are you coming back? Well, are you coming next week? I don't know what to do next. And it just happened, you guys, and you'll watch this happen with your customers is they help you build your product. So I would do these consultations and then they'd be like, well, are you coming back next month? And then I'd come back the next month and they'd say, are you coming back next month? I'm like, sure, I'll come back. So the great thing about the garden, you guys, it's not like interior design. Okay. Sometimes I wish my business was like putting up curtains, right? My mom is an interior designer. I'm like, I wish I put up curtains because they don't have pests, and they also don't have disease, and they don't also have to be replaced every 3 months. And my mom said the wisest thing to me. She said, oh, no, no. She's like, you have a much better business model than I do. And I said, why? And she's like, because there's pests, because there's disease, because they have to be replaced every 3 months. And I was like, huh? She's like, they have to keep paying you. She said, my customers, I put those curtains up and they're done with me. They don't need me again until they move to a new house or they get tired of the curtains. She said, your people, they need you again next week. Have you guys thought about that? It's a really powerful part of being in the garden industry. It's a dynamic product. The product is changing. So it works out itself to keep us in business. So that means each person that you meet and you do a consult for, that's not the end of the road with them. That's just the beginning. That's just step one. You suddenly have a client that you might be working with for the next 4, 5, 10 years. And you get to decide if you don't like working with them, you don't have to. But how cool that by serving them and taking care of them, you've now earned yourself a customer for the next month. And if you take any business classes, if you've ever studied business, what they're going to show you the most powerful way to value a business, do you know what it is? The way that they value businesses is repeat customers. It's not one-time customers. The way that any analyst would value your business is how many people pay you to come back again and again. How many people call you twice, 3 times, 4 times. How neat, y'all, that this is built into our business. That repeat customers is part of the business. It's amazing. So now we combine these two together. All right. We have the consultation where we come in, we assess the location, we help them plan out their garden. And then after we make the recommendations, we're like, you're in charge. You can put this together. And then would you like me to come back next month? And they're going to say, yes, I would really like you to come back next month because I'm scared and I don't know what's going to happen. And the pest, the disease, right? So they're going to hire you to come back the next month and the one after that. And you combine these two and boom, you have created such a powerful business. This is Sarah Rubens. She joined Kitchen Garden Academy first in 2020, and then she started her garden coaching business after. And she has built the most incredible coaching business on the back of her consultations. So look at this. She says, I booked my largest project for $35,000 plus 10 months of coaching for an additional $5,680. So she has this customer she took care of. She helps them set up their garden, but then they keep paying her to come back. That is what makes a valuable business, you guys. And that's what we have inside of garden coaching. Okay, y'all doing okay? I'm gonna get a little bit of water. Okay. Now, the next thing we can offer is a garden consult with deliverables. So here, you don't do like the woman who trained me who says, get your own pen and paper, take your notes, I'm out of here. You give more on the back side of the consultation. So here you can give a deliverable. You could provide garden design, You can provide garden plans. You can provide written up things after you finish the consultation. All right. So this allows your consult to be even more valuable, which means you get to charge more. Now, it is going to take you more time, especially at the very beginning. This is why we help you inside of the certification. It's going to take you some more time to come up with the planting plans, to come up with the designs. But once you've done this a few times, a lot of times all you have to do is just alter them a little bit for the next client, and then you can give them to the next client too. You're going to find this as a consultant. Once you've figured out the system, once you've started to deliver it to a few clients, once you've done, let's say, 4 consultations, that fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, you kind of take what you created in the first 4 and you just tweak them a little bit. You just improve them a little bit, and then you get to sell them again. So, yes, it is hard work to get started. Of course, it's hard work. You're an entrepreneur, right? But once you get them going, these deliverables can be offered much easier to your clientele. And you kind of just do a couple edits, couple tweaks, and you get to just plug and play and repeat. This is Tammy. She is in Michigan, and she is one of our consultants who loves to combine this coaching and consulting together. And she's made this work doing it part time. So we have consultants who do this full time, it's their full time thing. I walked with 2 consultants last week, one in Boise, one here in Nashville, and they both do it full time. They both even have employees. But then you have people like Tammy, where she does this part time. She does this in the evening, she does this in the weekends. She doesn't necessarily want this to take over her full time job. She just loves doing it as additional income on the side. All right, the final thing you can sell is a garden consult with products. So I found this just the same way that it happened with my garden consultations, where I would do the consult and they're like, "Are you coming back?" And so the same thing happened with products, where I would say, "Hey, I want you to get this raised bed. I want you to get, you need to have a raised bed. You need to have trellises. You need to have a walkway. You need to have this kind of plants." And do you know what they would ask me next? They would say, "Where do I get that?" They would say, "Actually, can you get that for me?" And I was like, "Sure." So what I started doing, I would do the consultation, I would give them the design and the plans, I would recommend products, and then I would go get the products for them, whether it was soil or raised beds or plants or trellises. Now, here's where the magic happens. As a business owner, once your business is set up, we teach you how to do this inside of our garden consultant program. You get a wholesale license. And so when you have a wholesale license, you can buy things cheaper. So you can buy your soil, your plants, your beds, everything you can buy, you buy it at a lower price because you're now the seller, right? You're now the shop. So I could go, let's see who's on here, Sandy. I could go to Sandy and I could say, "Sandy, I think you should get these plants, this soil, and this raised bed." And Sandy says, "I'm a nurse. I can't go do that. Can you go do that for me?" I say, "Yep, I can." So I go run around town, pick up the bed, pick up the soil, pick up the plants. I buy them all at a lower price, and then I deliver them to Sandy at a higher price. Now, the margins here are not nearly as good as they are with consulting, right? With consulting, the margins is almost 100%, but they're still good. And it's extra money that you can make on top, which allows you to up the value for your client. They got these great products. And here's the thing I want you to write down. This is something that I have to tell myself all the time. They're going to buy it anyway. They're going to spend the money anyway. Why not have them spend the money with you? They're going to buy the soil. They're probably going to buy the wrong soil. They're going to buy the plants. They're probably going to buy the wrong plants. So if they're going to spend the money anyway, why not let them spend that money with you? And let's say you only make 10, 15, 20% on the product. That's still money, right? I built my bank account. I started my business with $450. It was a preschool refund check. I put it in the bank. And then I was literally building this business bank account from scratch. I didn't have any loans. I didn't have any money from my parents or from my husband. It was just my money. And this garden you see in this picture, this is how I built my business bank account. I would buy this bed, buy this soil, buy these plants, all at a discount. And then I would sell it to the customer for the same price she was going to spend anyway. All right. I'm not price gouging or anything. So I sell it for the price she's going to pay anyway. And then I get to keep that $100, that $50, that $100. And before you know it, that money adds up, right? If I can buy a plant at the plant shop for $1 and my customer would go to that plant shop and buy that plant for $3, how much money do I make on each plant I sell her? Let's do the math. Ready? I buy it for $1 and I sell it for 3. How much did I make per plant? $2. And I saved her the headache of going to the store. I saved her the frustration of having to pick out what plants to buy. And I got her a better plant, right? Now, you don't need a nursery license for this to buy from nurseries. You need a wholesale license. You would need a nursery license if you're growing the plants, and that's going to be dependent on where you live and what state you're in. But you do not have to have a grower's license to sell plants. You do have to have a wholesale license, though. So you can sell soil, plants, all these things that have to do with the products, and your customers are going to buy those anyway. And guess what? Because you did this consult with them, they trust you. They trust you. You've earned something with them that literally you can't put a price tag on because you're now their guide. You're now the person who's got the answers that they need. So here's a little picture of what we used to drop off at people's homes: raised bed, soil bags, plants. This is what we called our garden concierge program. So we would take orders for these and then we would go and just drop them off at their house. We didn't have to put them in. We had done our consult with them. We had told them exactly where to put the garden. And then boom, we just drop everything right at their door. This is called the garden concierge, and it's a perfect way to grow your business. So this is Nicole Enders. She joined our garden coach program in 2020, right at the height of COVID. This woman is amazing. This is a TVF in true living color. So she joined y'all before, I think it was the day before the city shut down. She went and got her registration to start her business. And her first business, she called it Philadelphia Box Gardens. And she would go into backyards in Philadelphia and do what I just showed you. She would drop off little things like this, little concierge gardens. Now she now lives in a new state. She lives in New Jersey, and she reached $100,000 in revenue even in her new state, starting with her first year there. So, but she started with just these simple little drop-offs, these little garden concierge programs, and that's the way that all of you guys can start too. So you're probably already thinking, how much do I charge for this? And I want to show you a formula that will work for anyone. All right. So pricing is sensitive. Pricing is also nuanced, but I want to show you how to start thinking about pricing when you grow your business. So we want to have two categories for pricing: service and product. All right. So service is going to be your hourly rate times the time needed. All right. So all of us here have a different number when we think this is how much I want to get paid as a garden consultant per hour. All right. So you can think through this. You can write it down. How much do I want to get paid when I'm working as a garden consultant? Do I want to get paid $25 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is? And then you multiply that times the time needed. So here's an example. If you're doing a 1 hour consultation, and let's say it takes you about 3 hours to get the whole thing done, 3 hours to drive there, an hour to meet with them. And I mean, sorry, not 3 hours, 1 hour to drive there, maybe a half hour to drive there, an hour to do it, another half hour to drive home, and then 1 hour to type up the recommendations. So you would want to charge $150 for that consultation because it's going to take you 3 hours to get it done, and you want to make $50 an hour. All right. So $50 an hour times 3, that's $150. That would be your price for your consult. Now it's different when it comes to products because with service, we're just the ones that are getting paid, right? But when you're dealing with product, you've got to deal with the cost of the product. So you want to think about how much does this cost me? And then you want to add on profit. And this is how much you want to keep. So let's look at a raised bed cost. All right. So let's say a raised bed costs $500 to buy it from a wholesaler, from somebody that you're going to buy the raised bed for. It costs $500. And your desire is to have a 100% markup, that you make double everything you pay. This is going to be a reach, all right? Don't do it right away, but these can be the prices you eventually get to. So you take $500 as the cost, and then you add on your $500 for your profit, and that gets you to $1,000 total for the raised bed. That's what you charge. So let's say we package these together and we have the consult and we have the raised bed. So we would have $1,000 for the raised bed, $150 for the consultation. The total price is going to be $1,150, and then the profit is going to be $650. Okay, you got it? Price is $1,150. The profit is $650. You have to watch your profit. That's another huge lesson for business, is the price doesn't matter nearly as much as the profit does. Okay, someone wanted to ask to go back to the formula. So I'm going to do this for you real fast. So we've got the raised bed cost. So this is the formula for your product. Product is cost plus profit. And then the other one, sorry, I'm going forward instead of backward. And this is for the service. Service equals hourly rate times time needed. Got it? So service is hourly rate times time needed. And then product equals cost plus product. Carrie, I love you. Carrie's like, poor Nicole, you learned that lesson. I did learn that lesson in my warehouse this year. Okay, so let's talk about a really important concept before we close up here. Cost-based price versus something else. So cost-based price is what we just talked about, where you look at how much something costs and then how much you could charge for it. All right, so if I said to you, Carrie, I really want you to start your garden this year, and I'm going to help you the whole way. So you can hire me to do a consult with you. I'll tell you exactly where to put the garden. That's going to be $150, and then I'll set you up with a raised bed, and the raised bed is wooden. I'll deliver it right to your door, and that's going to be $1,000. So for $1,150, I'll do the consult for you, and I'll get the raised bed right to your door. And Carrie's like, huh, sounds kind of expensive. $1,150 to talk to you and get a raised bed. Or I could present the price to Carrie with value. And I could say, Carrie, I'm so excited to do this consult with you. Let me tell you about my friend Kathleen. I met with Kathleen last year. We did a consult together. She'd never gardened before. And in 1 hour, I was able to clear up all of her confusion and help her understand where to put the garden, where her sun was best, help her prioritize what she wanted to plant. And then I found her the raised bed of her dreams, helped her, coached her through getting it set up. And now Kathleen is out in her garden every single day. She sends me pictures of the garden at sunrise and at sunset. She's pulled carrots and tomatoes. She has herbs every single day from the garden. She stopped buying lettuces from the grocery from March to May, and again from September to November. She eats lettuce from the garden almost every day. She said she's never had the most delicious meals that she's had since she put in her raised bed with me. So I want to do for you what I did for Kathleen, and I know you're going to love it so much. The price is $1,150, and with that $1,150, you're going to be replacing your herbs, your grocery store lettuces, and then you're going to have all these fun dishes that you can make right from the garden over the entirety of the summer season. So what do you think? All right, do you see the difference? Yeah, that's value-based pricing. So what's the difference in value-based versus cost-based? That sounds so much better. Exactly. Shannon said, I'm sold. So that's what we have to think through when we're talking about pricing, because if you're going to get in your head, which I know you are, thoughts versus facts, you're going to say, no one would ever spend $1,150 with me to get a raised bed. No one would ever pay $100 to talk with me about the garden, right? Is that a fact or is that a thought? That is a thought. But if you reposition it, if you go to the value and you think, if someone talks to me, I am going to save them 5 years of grief in the garden. If someone meets with me, I could save them $500 of buying the wrong soil at Home Depot. If that person who just spent $500 on plants talked to me first, she would have not bought any of those plants, and instead she would have known how to grow everything from seed. Do you see the difference? So you have to start reframing. You have to go to value versus cost. And that is the magic of creating a price that people will pay. People pay to get their problems solved. And if you can solve their problem and paint a picture of a new value for them, then the cost becomes a lot easier to swallow. Still a cost. Let's be real. $1,000 is a lot of money for some people. But for the right person, when you paint the picture of that value, then they say yes. So the same thing happens with our Gardenary certification program. When I talk about our Gardenary consultant program, some people are like, oh, it costs that much? Or how much does it cost? And I say, well, let's not talk about what it costs yet. Let's talk about the difference that it's made in people's lives. And so I'll tell them and show them people things like this. Like I'll tell about Sarah and Jamie, who I walked with last week, who both have businesses that make over $100,000 a year. They've hired other employees. They do this full time. I'll show stories like this where people are making $12,000 in a month, or they've quit their full time job, or they do it on the evenings or the weekends. And instead of talking about, oh, what does a program cost? I talk about, oh, let's talk about the value that this brings to the people who take it. And that completely changes the conversation. So I want you, as you think about your business, I want you to think about this dichotomy of worrying about, will anybody spend this money with me? And switch it to be, how will their lives be better because they spent this money with me? And that's how you start to convince. You know who the hardest person to convince is in a sale? It's not your customer, it's you, right? You are the first person who has to be convinced that this is worth $1,000. And I love how several of you said this, like, you sold me. I, you have to be the first person to be sold. And do you know what sales is? Sales is a transfer of trust. Sales is a transfer of trust. So when you walk out, let's say Mabel, when you walk out and you say, I love my garden. My garden changed my life. My garden made my life more valuable. My garden is worth $5,000 to me. When Mabel walks into her customer's yard and she says, this garden is going to be $5,000 when you put it all in, the one I've just recommended to you. And she goes, gulp, right? She goes, that was scary to say. But then she's like, but I'm sold. I I would spend $5,000 on my garden. It's worth that to me. She should spend it too. It's worth that to her. So the most important person you've got to convince here about the pricing for your product is yourself. You have to remind yourself how valuable the garden is to you, and that will transfer. When I first started, the first garden I sold for $400. That was a trip for me. That was so scary. In the last year, in 2022, we sold a garden for $175,000. That's a big difference. How did I go from selling something for $500 and being afraid to selling something for $175,000 and not being afraid? It was the trust factor, because I believed first that my garden was worth it. And then every new person I took care of and I watched their face, it convinced me more. So then I would believe it more. And then I'd have more courage to go out and sell the next one. And then I would watch their response and they loved it. So I'd have more courage to go out and sell the next one. Courage is not a personal attribute that you're born with. Courage is a skill, it is a muscle that you built. And courage is built with practice, with believing it, doing it, and then having the confirmation come back to you and then doing it again. So I went from trepidatiously asking for $25 for a garden consult to 5 years later selling a $175,000 garden. And you will be able to do that too. Your confidence will grow, your courage will grow, and your ability to not get so freaked out over the pricing will grow too. I hope I'm talking to y'all. Well, okay. So this is Inez. This is Jamie. She regularly creates over $15,000 gardens. She's made over 100,000 in her first year. This is Inez. She's in Canada. She did a community garden project at over 45,000. I share those numbers with you so that you believe this is true. Okay, scan the code right here. To download your bonus cheat sheet. This is for you guys for staying all the way. We have about a few minutes left. Lisa said, we need courage to train for a marathon. I know, right? Me too. So this is your bonus cheat sheet. This is my favorite things to sell as a garden coach. I love this one so much. So grab that. If you're not on a computer and you can't scan it, my team's going to put it in the chat for you. And then don't forget to save your seat for Friday. If you like today, first of all, you shouldn't miss any days. I'll be back here tomorrow and Wednesday, but definitely don't miss Friday because that is the best class. All right, this is when I get to tell you my little personal story. This is my favorite part of class. So a lot of people now, they see me and they think that everyone loved my idea at the very beginning. Have you thought this? Easy for Nicole to say her husband loved it, her parents loved it, her kids thought she was awesome, her whole community thought she was amazing. And what most people don't know is that none of that is true. So I was a homeschooler before I started my business. And to start my business, I stopped homeschooling. And that was my support network. Those were all my friends. That was my entire community before I started my business. And to be honest, only one of them really liked what I was doing. Now, a couple of them acted like they were okay with it. But within about 5 to 6 months, none of them were my friends anymore, except for one. One of them stood by me. And that was hard. So I did it mostly on my own. I didn't do it with friends cheering me on. Then I didn't necessarily have all the support of my family either. Now, my mom and dad, they're rock stars, they're amazing. But they definitely thought what I was doing was quite strange. I had a college degree in accounting and math, and I had worked in philanthropy, and I was a homeschooler. And suddenly I was hauling around bags of soil in the back of my van. So they thought it was a little off and also did not quite see the potential of starting a garden business. My sister thought it was just another one of my crazy ideas because I have a lot of crazy ideas. So she assumed it was something I would do for 6 months, a year, and then I'd be done with it. My kids were a little embarrassed about me because I was showing up to pick them up from school dirty with dirt under my nails and soil in the back of my car and plants. And they were like, Mommy, where have you been? What is going on? Now, soon they were actually my biggest fans. But at the very beginning, I'm going to admit to you, it was embarrassing even for me to tell my kids that I was trying this out. And then my husband, I think mostly to protect me, was probably the most skeptical. And I can remember getting in bed at night and my hands were hurting because that day I had dug out Mexican petunia. By the way, don't ever agree to do this for a client. I had dug out Mexican petunia out of a client's garden because I said yes to everything. And my hands were literally cramping. And I said to him, Is this dumb? What am I doing? And he was like, I honestly don't know. I'm not sure that this is the best use of your college degree. And he stood by me, but I definitely never felt like he fully got the picture of where I was headed and what I was doing. But there was one person that really got it, and that was my cousin. My cousin Laura is 6 years younger than me, and she and her husband both have their own businesses. At that time, he's a wedding photographer, and she would do hair and makeup. And the minute I told her that I was starting a business, she was all in. She was so pumped for me. In fact, she flew to Houston and took pictures of me in my garden to help me start my business. Now, why did she get it? She's 6 years younger than me. She doesn't know anything about gardening. She definitely doesn't know anything about the garden industry. She got it because she was a business owner, because she had built a business from her home that she was making great money at. The danger of asking people for their permission or their advice is that you're almost always going to be asking someone who's never done this before. And if you follow sage advice, if you love seeing those little quotes on Instagram, one that comes up quite often is never ask for advice from someone whose life you do not want to have. Never ask for advice from someone to do something that they have never done. And so It is quite dangerous to go to someone in your family. Chances are entrepreneurs are pretty far and few between. You might have some, you might be lucky and you have some in your family, but most of us don't. And so we put ourselves at the mercy of these people in our lives who we care about and who we love when we ask for their advice. Should I start a business? Should I start a garden business? What do you think? Do you think this would work? When you ask that to someone who's never started a business or who's never worked in the garden industry, you're most likely going to get, that's a terrible idea. You're most likely going to hear, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And the thing we have to remember is that when we want something new, when we're considering something new, the place you need to go is to the people who've done it. When you want to change your life, you want to put yourself near people who've changed their lives similarly. When you want to stop drinking, when you want to get healthy, when you want to run a marathon. When I want to run a marathon, the last person I'm going to ask about running a marathon is someone who's never run a marathon. I'm not going to ask someone who has never even run if I should run a marathon and what I should do next. I'm not going to even ask them if it's a good idea because they're going to think it's dumb. They're going to say, run for 26 miles straight? I don't think so. Not unless the cops are coming for me. That's the kind of advice you're going to get from someone who's never run a marathon. So I want to remind you, whether it's in garden business, whatever business you want to go into, whatever dream you have, you can ask for support, but you should not ask for advice or permission from people who haven't done it yet. They're just going to be too scared for you. And it's not out of hate for you. It's not because they don't love you. It's actually because they love you. And so what happens in that moment is they want to protect you. They see you as putting yourself out there and becoming vulnerable. And because they love you, because you're their child, you're their spouse, you're their parent, you're their friend, they don't want to see you get hurt. And so the only answer they know to give you is don't do that. You're not going to want to do that. That's dangerous. And they're literally trying to help you. So I'm here to help you and encourage you if this is what you want. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Gardening, business, not for everybody. You got to love the garden. You got to love teaching people. And you got to be a go-getter. You got to get out there and do the work. This is not just going to fall into your lap. This is hard work. There's a reason why not everybody does this. Time, money, and purpose. That sounds too good to be true, right? Yeah, it is if you don't want to work for it. So this isn't for the faint of heart. This isn't easy, but it is possible and you can do it. And I want to encourage you that you can do it even if not everyone gets it. And they will get it eventually. They will understand it eventually if you stick with it. The very people that I know 5 years ago started their business through Gardenary's program, they now employ some of their family. They now treat some of their family. Their family are the ones coming to them for advice and support. And so you find yourself over time becoming the person who other people need to get support and permission from. But you have to have the courage to be the first one. You have to have the courage to keep going and to not need everyone to love your idea and think it's amazing. All right, you guys good? That's the end. This is going to go to your hub. I saw all of you guys freaking out about the replay. Don't worry, we got you guys with the replay, okay? Y'all were great. Thanks for being here for day number 1. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to find your clients. Because you're thinking, I saw you guys asking, is this going to be too many? Do we have too many garden coaches? No, we do not have too many garden coaches. I can't find enough garden coaches. We get so much inquiries, people asking for help, and we can't find garden coaches, especially if you're in places like Florida, Northeast, Northwest. We literally don't have enough garden coaches to take care of those people. So the demand far, far outlasts the supply for years. It will be that way for years. Especially because more and more people want to garden than they ever have. Like people are wanting to garden more than they ever have, especially millennials. It's amazing. All right, you guys. I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central The link is the same. So you can use the exact same link that we had for today. Use that for tomorrow. And be sure if you are that you're here live to get the little private personal story and also the download. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. And of course, don't forget, be there Friday at noon. I'll see y'all later. Take care. Bye for now.